Hi guys, it's Ankita. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I talk about books here, review them, recommend them. If that's something that you're looking for, consider subscribing to my channel. And in this video, I am going to talk about All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot, specifically chapters 41 through 52, I believe. Yeah, 52. If you have not read those chapters, you might want to skip this video because it contains spoiler, and this is part of the spring read along. You'll find the schedule in the description down below. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Chapter 41 is when James Herriot is working as an inspector for the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, which means he goes out to inspect the cattle and farm animals, and it's all for the ministry. And Herriot is under the impression that this is going to be so much easier than his routine job as a vet, but he soon finds out that that's not the case. And he first goes out to Mr. K's farm, and he was expecting that Mr. K would have rounded up all the cows, but he did not. And both of them, Mr. K and Herriot, spend a lot of time trying to get all of the cows in the barn so that Herriot can get on with his TB, tuberculosis inspection, and it's just taking too long. In the end, both of them give up, and then Mr. K is like, let me call my neighbor. He is really good at making fly noises, and Herriot has no idea what he means, but any help is welcome at this point when Herriot is super late for his other calls. And so here comes Sam. I believe his name was Sam. Yeah, Sam, who literally makes fly noises. I don't know what kind of a noise that would be, but it really freaks the cows out, and they all rush towards the barn. And it is just, yeah, he just masterfully rounds up all of the cows, and Herriot can get on with his work. And yeah, after that, the entire day, obviously he is late to each and every call, and he soon finds out that the work that he thought would be easier is actually much more tiresome. That was chapter 42. I found this observation very interesting, and it's on page 332, where Herriot says, even the friendliest farmer seems to derive pleasure from a vet's discomfiture, and Mr. Bell listened with an ever-widening grin of delight. By the time I had finished, he was doubled up, beating his breeches knees with his hands. Oh, right. Is this when he is inspecting a cow and the cow on starts kicking him? I think this is what happened, and then he crawls out of a small hole in the wall. I'm pretty sure in hindsight this must have been really funny for James Herriot, but yeah, quite a traumatizing experience. Chapter 43 is about Miss Stubbs, who is a penniless old lady who lives with her dogs and caretakers, and her dogs are also aging and she is aging. And yeah, it was just a very grim chapter, but I really like that the caretaker, Mrs. Broadwith, I'm really glad that after Miss Stubbs passes away, Mrs. Broadwith takes all of the dogs with her. I thought that was really kind of her. Many years ago, I recall watching a movie in which this dog has a really special bond with his human father, and so he follows his dad every day to the station when his dad is going to work, and then he knows when his dad is going to come back, so he waits for his dad at the station. So they have this really close bond. But this one day the father goes to work and he passes away at work, and the dog keeps waiting for him. And obviously when the train arrives at the station, the father doesn't arrive because he has passed away, and the dog still keeps waiting. And every day at the same time, the dog keeps going back to the station, and he does that for years, and it's the most heartbreaking movie I have ever seen. Chapter 44 is when James describes how he joins the music club. What is it? The music society, Darrowby Music Society, just so that he gets to see Helen, and he finally sums up the courage to ask her out. Chapter 45 is when Harriet and Sigurd have a conversation about whether farmers really love their animals, because yeah, they're raising them, but in the end, the animals end up at the butchers. And the same day, James Herriot visits John Skipton, and he realizes that yes, there are men like John Skipton who walk downhill every day to feed these two horses who are super old, and they have been on his farm for many years, and they don't do anything. They just live there, they eat, and they are living there. Even though he had many animals, he did form a special attachment to these horses, and he kept them even when those two horses were not of any use to him on the farm, but he obviously was attached to them. Chapter 46 is when Harriet describes how, when he is performing a surgery or a procedure on these animals at the farm, how some of the most like burly and sturdy men were the ones who would faint at the sight of blood. Chapter 47 is when Harriet tells us about Mr. Sidlow. Mr. Sidlow is the kind of man who would try all natural remedies on his sick animals, and when they all fail and when the animals have become more sick, sometimes to the point where nothing can be done for them, that's the point when Mr. Sidlow would call a vet. Yeah, and so Harriet describes some of his visits at Mr. Sidlow and how uncomfortable he felt there when he had to declare that there wasn't much that he could do for his animals, because obviously Mr. Sidlow had tried all sorts of things which would worsen the condition of his animals. And Harriet somehow puts up with him, and he just kind of forgives him. But there's this one day when James Herriot gets a tip to bet on a horse, and James really wanted to do that, but that's when he gets a call from Mr. Sidlow, and obviously no visits to Mr. Sidlow's place are ever of any use. Most of the times, whenever James Herriot arrives there, it's too late for the animals. And Harriet is extremely frustrated when he learns that the horse that he was going to bet on wins. He loses the chance to make a lot of money. Chapter 48, Harriet describes his first date with Helen, and wow, so many things go wrong, but I really do like Tristan's enthusiasm to dress him up. I thought that was really, really kind of Tristan. Oh, chapter 49 is when Herriot is going downhill, and he describes that how his car's brakes have not been working for a very long time, and it was all okay when he was on plain ground. Well, not okay, but yeah, it did all right. He didn't crash into anybody, but when he has to go downhill, that was really scary. And Sigurd, being Sigurd, doesn't take this seriously until one day he himself is driving. How they kind of go around the building because there's no way they can stop. The brakes are not working. Chapter 50 was something, wasn't it? Chapter 50 is when Harriet gets bitten by a Great Dane. Must have been terrifying. I love dogs, but I cannot imagine being bitten by one. That would be really traumatizing. Chapter 51 was really interesting. Just the snowy landscape and how these Yorkshire farmers, for them, the snowy landscape and snowstorms are so normal, and they are like part and parcel of life. But for Harriet, it becomes really difficult to visit his patients. Chapter 52. Now we know by now how Siegfried can be super annoying. He can be erratic. But in this one, we clearly see Siegfried gaslighting Harriet. And for the very first time, Harriet loses his school. And Tristan makes an observation that ever since Harriet has been on that date with Helen, he has been very irritable. That's all I have to say about these chapters. I was a bit disappointed because I wanted a chapter about Tricky. I miss Tricky. And the new piglet as well, Mrs. Bumfrey. I wanted a chapter about them. Also, there wasn't a chapter about Tristan, was there? Yeah, hopefully we'll have a few chapters about Tristan and Tricky in the next set of chapters. I'm curious to know what your thoughts were on these chapters, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye bye.